ABC Wednesdays. Shifting Gears is back.
He has arisen.
Tim Allen and Kat Dennings return in television's #1 new comedy.
What?
With a star-studded premiere including Jenna Elfman, Nancy Travis, and...
Hey, buddy!
a big home improvement reunion.
Welcome.
Oh, boy.
That guy's a tool.
Shifting Gears. New Wednesdays, 8/7 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
Experience a membership that backs your business journey with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy a welcome offer of 200,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Big news. Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. 1 order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
Hello and welcome back, my fellow samurai, to the Ghost of Tsushima Yotei Gamecast. I'm your host, Andrew Zink, and this is episode 26 of the Ghost of Tsushima Yotei Gamecast. Super excited for this episode. We're going to be doing a full review of Ghost of Tsushima. Spoilers ahead, everyone. We're going to really be diving into everything. So if you haven't played the game, and you don't want spoilers, don't listen to this. But yeah, I can't believe we're finally here. We've gone through and covered the entire game of Ghost of Tsushima, all the side quests, all the mythic tales, the main story analysis. We've also done the Iki Island DLC on this podcast, and I just can't believe we're 26 episodes in and finally doing our final full review of Ghost of Tsushima. So super excited to be doing it for everybody who's been listening, which is actually quite a lot of people. I gotta say, I'm actually kind of surprised how many people have been listening to this podcast. But for everybody who's been listening, I really appreciate it. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll just dive right in. This is really going to be one of our final episodes before we do all Ghost of Yotei content for the foreseeable future. So excited for that too. So yeah, I'll just say off the bat, I love this game. I thought Ghost of Tsushima was fantastic. And I'm just going to start with the main storyline. I'm going to run through a lot of different, stuff. This is going to be a pretty in-depth game review, but I'm just going to start with the main storyline. And starting with, just the setting of the game, the Mongolian invasion of Tsushima Island, and, Japan and the Japanese islands of 1274. AD, not just as a historian, definitely as a historian, but also just as a regular person, I thought this was a fantastic setting. And I thought this was incredible because it teaches people something new, like how many people we learned about the Mongols in school, but after you leave school, how often are you thinking about the Mongolian invasions, across the world and hearing about it? And specifically, the Mongolian invasion of Japan, and then even more specifically, the Mongolian invasion of Tsushima Island off the coast of Japan, which was real and actually happened. So I found all that just to be so fascinating and so cool to have a game centered around all that and just so unique, just such a cool thing to make a game around. And I thought the disastrous battle of Komoda Beach, the opening cinematic of the game was just really devastating and impactful. It was also just totally epic, just one of the most epic game openings, I've seen in a game. And yeah, it really sets the stage for, just how totally unprepared the samurai are for the Mongolian invasion. Starting with when they send out Lord Adachi to have a one-on-one duel with Khotun Khan, and Khotun Khan proceeds to throw an alcoholic drink on him. And while Lord Adachi is looking around that he's now drenched, Khotun Khan chucks a torch at him, sets him on fire, and cuts him down. And this is their most fierce warrior of the samurai army. This is one of their leaders who, just talk about demoralizing and, just really crazy way to open the story. And yeah, I felt like the whole way through you're just seeing so much about Mongolian culture, seeing a ton about this invasion, the just brutality of Mongolian invasions. So just a really, really crazy, setting for a game to start. And then, I'll move on to the next part of one of the main story themes, which is, Jin Sakai, who you play as the whole game, becomes the Ghost of Tsushima. And you're really grappling with these themes of, honor, of traditional samurai honor versus becoming the ghost and embracing new and different tactics that might be considered dishonorable according to the samurai Bushido code. And, it eventually becomes sort of Jin versus his uncle, Lord Shimura, by the end of Act 2 in this honor versus dishonor, or, head-to-head fighting versus stealth combat, these sorts of themes that keep coming up in different ways. All in all, so here's what I'm going to say on this. I think this was a fascinating topic to explore, the concept of honor, and how much can one or would one or should one bend their concept of honor when you're up against a totally unprecedented force and an unprecedented invasion. And it's not just the numbers, but it's the tactics. The Mongolians have just these unprecedented tactics, not just combat, but in trying to manipulate segments of the population on Tsushima to work against each other. And Jin basically realizes from the Battle of Komata, but also from Yuna, who becomes a companion throughout the game, that you can't beat the Mongolians just head on. You do have to expand your tactics if you're going to pull this off. So I think this was a really fascinating and important concept to, dive into and explore. And I really commend Sucker Punch, the game developer, for just trying to do something different and really how far they take this. Because in the end, Jin loses everything. He loses his standing. Clan Sakai gets disbanded by the fictional shogun in the game. You either have to, I was about to talk about the ending, but I'll save that for just a little bit. But Jin really does lose everything. And I was I could see that it was building throughout the first act or two of hey, Jin, we want to try and stick to the samurai code and everything. But the fact that it gets taken to this point where it's Jin is essentially exiled and outcast from the Japanese society that he grew up in is really just, I think it's a courageous storytelling move. And just for me personally, there were parts of it where as it happened, I felt like it just got a little bit ridiculous, where for me, I was just and at the end of Act 2, when Jin uses the poison to defeat the Mongolians at Castle Shimura, and that's the point he gets exiled from the main samurai forces. For me, I just was I really feel someone bent the rules a little bit. There might be some people who have problems, but if they single-handedly turned back an entire invasion force, and again, it's not just an invasion force, this is the Mongolians are massacring civilians, there's horrific, crimes against humanity happening here. And so, this is not without justification. Jin is doing everything he does as the ghost in response to the Mongolians doing this. So there were definitely points for me where I just felt it was a little bit over exaggerated the way that Jin was treated. But with that being said, I mean, I find it so courageous, and I love that they took the story in this direction, because I think it would have been, it could have been so easy to just have this be like kind of I don't know, just an unsurprising like action RPG where it's just like, yeah, you fight the Mongolians and you beat them in the end, and it's a happily ever after. And the fact that Sucker Punch tried to do something so different, to me, is just like awesome. I think it speaks volumes just about, like, you know, they're trying to do something that makes you think. You know, they're trying to do something different, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, I found that whole part of the main storyline to be really cool. As part of the main storyline, I have to mention Khotun Khan, the leader of the Mongolian invasion force in this game. Khotun Khan was not a real person in real life. He's a fictional character. But in the game, I think he's just a great big bad. You know, he's cunning. He's always one step ahead. And you realize from the very beginning that he's learned Japanese. He's studied the samurai battle tactics. He studied Japanese culture. So he's an enemy who is, again, he's not just like a one-dimensional brute. You know, he's someone who's clearly very intelligent, and he rewards submission so much as he punishes disobedience. And again, that's just also very cunning, and that helps him win over Ryuzo, which is, you know, Jin's childhood friend, who is a leader of the Straw Hat Ronin and ends up betraying them to join the Mongols. And I'll talk about Ryuzo in a second, but, you know, so it's just showing you that Khotun Khan is just a really worthwhile enemy to have. And I definitely felt like, you know, the end battle with him was really cool. We end up defeating him on his ship, and then the whole ship goes down in flames, you know, outside of Port Izmi. So yeah, I just thought Khotun Khan was really cool. Great character, great antagonist to have there. Yeah, and, you know, mentioning Ryuzo, this kind of leads me to just some of the character progression throughout the game, and I'll get to the allies too, but I'll just start with Ryuzo since I just mentioned him. Yeah, I mean, I thought Ryuzo was a really fantastic character because he represents a difference in class from Jin. You know, like, Ryuzo grew up poor, not in a samurai family, so he had to kind of make his own way in the world in a much different way than Jin did. And the way that Ryuzo talks about the falling out that happens between him and Jin, you know, at this tournament, at Lord Nagao's tournament earlier in their childhood, like, Jin really remembers it very differently. And before the betrayal of Ryuzo, you can kind of see that Ryuzo has been on a much different path than Jin, and you just get this sense that they're headed different directions and that there's a lot of underlying issues between them. And again, it's not like Jin doesn't have any problems with Ryuzo really, but Ryuzo clearly is feeling a lot of different resentment that comes from just like their status in society and where they come from and just some other things. So, and then Khotun Khan plays on that. And, you know, he's able to find a division there. Now, I have to say one thing about Ryuzo. So the whole quest line where the Straw Hat Ronin are starving and Jin's trying to help them find food, and then Ryuzo, like, his whole excuse on paper, what he's saying is that, you know, he needs to feed his soldiers, the Straw Hat Ronin. That's why he joins the Mongols. At a certain point, I felt like this was sort of ridiculous. Because by the start of Act 2, right after he betrays you, like, you know, you've freed Lord Shimura, you've put together a whole, like, you know, force that is responding to the Mongolians, and clearly you're fed. Like, and this is, I know this is kind of like a meme comical thing, but like, there's literally deer running around the map, like, through the whole game. So, like, even when I was doing the Ryuzo quest, like, I'd ride past just a whole, like, you know, pack of deer, and then get to Ryuzo, and he's like, "Oh, we're starving." And there's boar around the whole map that you can kill for you know, predator hides to use, as upgrades. So there is like literally food just running around that he's then like, oh, I'm so hungry. And that's the thing. Like, and there's been a lot of discussion, debate about this in the Ghost of Tsushima community, but like, it's not really about the food. Like, it's about these underlying issues that exist between Jin and Ryuzo. But yeah, like that's my logical brain on that. I just was like, I mean, come on, dude. Like, and eventually Ryuzo is like committing these atrocities on behalf of the Mongols. He's like, my men are so hungry. And I just was like, dude, isn't this a little extreme? Like, really? I mean, at one point he's like burning alive Japanese civilians because Khotun Khan is telling him to. And he's like, I'm so hungry. We're all so hungry. I have to burn you alive. And it's just like, surely just joining our side, you would be fed by now. So, yeah, that was just one thing. All in all, it's not a huge deal for me, but I just had to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, I felt like the character, progression and development of Ryuzo was really good, and it was really good for Jin too throughout the whole game. And I loved the allies that you can recruit through the whole game: Sensei Ishikawa, Yuna, Lady Masako, Norio. There's just and Kenji. Who could forget Kenji? Kenji, one of the funniest characters in the 2020s video game characters. And each character really does have, I feel, some really great story moments. And I feel like Lady Masako's storyline is incredibly emotional. It's just the loss of her family, everything you experience at her side, through that is really heavy and heartfelt. And the ending of that, where it's her sister who is behind the conspiracy to wipe out Clan Adachi, was just a really wild twist. And again, they do a great job where it's like you kind of understand where her sister, Lady Hana, was coming from, where she'd basically just been left, like, forgotten, married off to the northern part of Tsushima Island and forgotten about, and she was married off to a drunk domestic abuser, and that's just like and so she holds a lot of resentment towards Masako Adachi for that. And so again, it's just they're telling stories that are incredibly impactful, and for me, like, I just kept being surprised at how good all of these storylines were, because once again, it could have been so easy for them to just have something sort of simple where it's like, here's a side character, you have to help them defeat the Mongols, and you just do some quests with them, and there's not really that much of significance. But that was just not the case. And that was true with every character. Norio and his background with his brother Enjo, and the storyline around the monks and the temples in Acts 2 and 3, the Sensei Ishikawa storyline around his conflict with Tomoe, his student who you eventually meet, and then kind of have a bit of an emotional encounter with, in Act 3 as you're chasing her down.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Just a lot of fantastic storylines and character progressions, throughout the game. So I really appreciated all that. And one thing I wanted to talk about just with the main storyline is the mechanics of this is really, Ghost of Tsushima has a very linear story where it's like you start the game and you're in Act 1. And that's Izuhara. That's a part of the island. And, as you're playing through Act 1, it's like you're getting introduced to the game, and then you have to, before you can progress to Act 2, you can only progress to Act 2 if you complete all of the Act 1 main storyline. And then you can only progress to Act 3 if you complete all of the Act 2 main storyline. And so, I thought this was a great way to do it. Like, I thought they had a fantastic way to progress you through the map and the game, and I thought it worked really well. This ends up being way different than what is now the case in Ghost of Yotei, where the story is really not really that linear at all in Ghost of Yotei. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I actually like them both an equal amount, at least right now. I'm only like halfway through Ghost of Yotei right now, but they are different, and I think that's cool. I think it's just cool that they like switched up a little bit, and I think they did the linear storyline really well in Ghost of Tsushima. And for me, since we're talking about the 3 acts, I feel that Act 1 of Ghost of Tsushima is one of the best. It's like probably top 10, Act 1s of certainly any game that can be divided into Act 1s, and maybe of like, games in the 2020s. But yeah, like Act 1 is just so fun. The scenery is beautiful. Like the introduction to the story is awesome. The way you're like on the run from the Mongols, you're a fugitive, you're the ghost, you're like picking up the pieces of this disastrous battle of Komeda and like putting together allies and learning new techniques and, finding a new way in this new world is just really impactful. And, I fell in love with the game right away. I still love the whole game. I definitely felt like it fell off a little bit for me in Act 2, mainly for me just because the scenery changed so much. Act 2 was really, for me, it was very swampy and like gray and stormy, and it was beautiful in its own way, but I just feel it just can't compare to the beauty, the scenic beauty and the atmosphere of Act 1. And Act 3 is just snowy tundra for a lot of it, and again, very beautiful in its own way. It just doesn't measure up to Act 1 for me. And you could argue that each act's scenery and nature are kind of representative of what's happening in each act, and maybe I'm reading too far into that, but that's what I see. With Act 3, where it's like snowy and barren, that's kind of how it feels by that point in the story. You've been exiled from the samurai, you're on your own. It feels like cold and lonely, and that's the place that you're playing in, so that feels right to me. And again, maybe I'm reading into it here, maybe I've stumbled on something that nobody's ever talked about, but in Act 2 is where it kind of gets like murky, where it's like in Act 1 it's very like, I would say, fun and beautiful and simple, where it's like you're just fighting the Mongols and it's easy to, just like play through that. And the scenery is very beautiful and in a way kind of like reflects that simplicity. But then in Act 2, it's like swampy, murky, muddy, and morally and ethically things start to get murky. And that by the end of Act 2, again, you're exiled from the samurai. So it is interesting to consider it in that sense, but I did enjoy all 3 acts for their own merits, and Act 1 for me is just an all-time Act 1. So yeah, now I'll just get to the ending of the game, and I feel like the ending of the game, to me, I think it was fantastic what Sucker Punch just tried to do, just in doing something different. Again, I did not expect that at all. And the fact that you have a choice, you can choose the ending of to let Lord Shimura go or to kill him, at this important sentimental location for the two of you. So I thought the ending of the game was awesome, just in that they gave you a choice. Again, I was kind of at this place where I felt like it was a tiny bit ridiculous just that we were even at this place, because I felt like Jin had literally just won the war for Japan, basically, and that he didn't deserve any of this. But, it's supposed to be about the values and everything and the discussion around honor code, and so I really thought it was really cool how they did that with the ending of the game. And yeah, there's one last thing I have to end on the main storyline before we move on here. I will forever be so angry. I am angry that they killed my horse, y'all. At the end of Act 2, when your horse dies, I was pissed. I was not happy. And I'm still not. I named my horse Sora. That was the name that I chose at the beginning of the game. I miss Sora. Rip. Sora was the best. And yeah, when you get a new horse, I named my new horse Kage because that's Shadow. And I was like, nah, we're ghost. We're ghost now. So we got a ghost horse too. Yeah, all in all, fantastic main storyline. You know, like the little things here and there that I mentioned, like they're not big enough problems for me that it like took anything away from the game significantly. So I love the main story. So yeah, moving on from the main storyline, I want to get into the world building and exploration of this game. So I'll just start with the scenery. I mean, obviously, the scenery of Ghost of Tsushima is incredible. Just, again, gotta be top tier, just like nature scenery of all time. And, you know, I think that some people, you could say now, there's times where the graphics don't look as good as games now in 2025, but I still think it's one of the most scenically beautiful games ever made. There's so many scenes where, again, it's like you're looking across a frozen snowy wasteland, or you're looking at a sunset on the ocean, or you're on top of a mountain just looking across the hills and plains of Tsushima, and it's so beautiful. There's so many different scenes that are just absolutely beautiful, and yeah, you have to shout that out. And I think for everybody, that's like just a high water mark of the game. Yeah, so the next thing I want to mention, just in terms of the world building and the exploration and everything, I really liked how they really put you in the feeling of the war. And there's a lot of times where you're riding around and you get these totally random encounters, and they're not quests or anything, but you can just find a civilian who's just been killed and left by the side of the road. And it's so sad to see something like that, and it really just puts you in the mindset of just how sad and devastating this war is. And so there's a lot that you see throughout the game of that, where they're really just creating this putting you in this atmosphere that I think is adds to how you feel throughout the game and the importance of what you're doing. So the next thing I want to add about the world building is that there's a lot of cool side quests to find. And again, a lot of the side quests, they focus on the consequences of war and the consequences of this invasion, where it's people don't have food. And in one case, it's someone's starving, and then they get sick from eating mushrooms that they're not supposed to eat. And on one hand, it's kind of comical. I laughed at it a bit, in the episode I did on that quest. But on the other hand, I mean, that's a consequence of having your food supply cut off, which is what happens in war. And so that's a really sad thing. And so a lot of these side quests, you see the consequences of the invasion, but it's also displaying the resilience of, the Japanese people and of people in the face of just devastating hardship like this. So I found a lot of the side quests to be really worthwhile for those reasons. And yeah, as part of the side quests, the mythic tales are awesome. I loved the mythic tales. I thought they were just totally fantastic. And the way that the mythic tales dive into, mysterious folklore elements are just really cool. I really loved that. I loved those ink scripture cinematic scenes that you get when Yamato is telling the mythic tales to you and giving Jin the quest. I thought those were just really cool. Maybe some of the coolest cinematic scenes in the game. And yeah, and there's certain quests for the mythic tales where as you're chasing it down, it really feels is this something spiritual or magic that's happening? That feels really cool to be just watching and engaging in. You know, like, and when you discover the way of the flame, that's an example of one where it's like the tale is that essentially they're saying that a meteor fell to Earth from space and contained some sort of material that no one can really explain, but allows you to like light your sword on fire and creates, you know, the way of the flame. So just a lot of really cool folklore built into the mythic tales, and worth shouting out there. And again, it really puts you in this feeling of like Japan as this sort of ancient place that has a lot of complexity to it and mystique, and just makes it feel really cool. So, yeah, the next thing I want to add about just the exploration piece, and again, world building too, are just the activities that you can find throughout the map. And by activities, I'm talking about there's haikus, there's hot springs, lighthouses, shrines, the bamboo strikes. All those are so cool. I mean, the haikus are to me, they're my favorite part of the game. I'm like more than happy to say that, you know. The haikus are just so peaceful, and there's so many different locations that are so beautiful. And again, how many games, especially let alone action games, you know, how many action games can you play where 1 minute you're, you know, like fighting and battling, and the next minute you're stopping to write a poem, like, and it's totally serene and peaceful, and you get a headband for it every time. So I just love the haikus. Can't say enough good things about the fact that they included those in the game. I love the hot springs too. Again, for a similar reason. It's just very peaceful. Gives you an opportunity to reflect and get a little more like thoughts of Jins. For me, I felt like the hot springs in some ways were a little bit of a missed opportunity, because there were sometimes that the dialogue I just wanted more. Like, you know, you would like select, like, reflect on my father, and then it's just like, oh, I wish my father was here. I'm sure he would love this. And it's like, I don't know, I just wanted a little more from that dialogue, but it was still really cool that they had it in there. And then, yeah, between the lighthouses that you can find them and reignite the flames, and all the just the beautiful and cool shrines that you can find, and you know, like climb them to get certain charms and such. All just really beautiful, cool things. And the bamboo strikes were awesome. Those were just like such a fun little quick mini game to have in a game that I just thought was like so fun. So I wanted to shout those out. And then, yeah, I mean, as part of the exploration too, there's collectibles. You know, there's the Sashimono banners and the singing crickets. Honestly, the Sashimono banners and the singing crickets, I didn't prioritize too much, because they don't really add that much to the lore. And that's what I was interested in. I really wanted to, you know, pursue as much as I could around the lore of the game, and just see if I could get background on characters, or, you know, just other parts of the world. But the Mongolian artifacts and the records are the collectibles that I really pursued heavily. And the Mongolian artifacts were especially cool because, again, it's like you're seeing, like it's giving you parts of the Mongolian culture, and it's like, oh, these are the types of shoes that the Mongolians would need to bring with them or wear for different types of weather, and oh, these are how they made. This is the material they use to make their huts. You know, their yurts. Like, just a lot of cool stuff like that. And yeah, the records obviously give you insights into tons of different stuff that's going on throughout the game. So all those collectibles are really cool. And again, they just add to just the immersion, you know, how immersed you are in the game. And here's the thing that's crazy. So when I played Ghost of Tsushima, and this is kind of wrapping up the world building exploration section here, when I played it, you know, I feel like the game was very immersive because it felt very easy to like just ride around and discover things and, you know, just enjoy having an open world map and game like that. And don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. But since playing Ghost of Yotei has just like taken it to such another level in how good it is that it's just like it's hard to even compare. But yeah, I guess I'll save that for my Ghost of Yotei review. But so all in all, I thought the game had fantastic world building and exploration. You know, there's like minor things here and there that I don't know, might have been able to say along the way, like, oh, this would have been cooler, better, but I thought it was great, and I don't have any major complaints about world building and exploration. So now, yeah, I want to dive into the gameplay because there's a lot to talk about in the gameplay with Ghost of Tsushima. And I'm actually just going to start with something kind of simple and short, which for me is the horseback riding. I thought the horseback riding to me was one of the best mechanical parts of the game because it was very smooth. The way you can whistle and have your horse show up, and they set it up so that like your horse, it runs up from behind you and will keep running alongside you for a bit. So you don't have to like stop and in a very slow, cumbersome way, get on your horse and then like, you know, get off your horse. It can be very fast the way that you're getting on your horse. And then you can jump off your horse everywhere you go. And in some ways, it's not entirely realistic, but it's not meant to be. And I support that in this case. In this case, it's meant to just like speed up the game, move you around the map quicker. You want to have fun. You want to enjoy it. And like as a contrast, right? If you play any Red Dead Redemption 1 or Red Dead 2, like getting on and off your horse it's just a lot slower and it's real. And as an example, with the horseback riding mechanics in Ghost of Tsushima, one of the best things, one of the most awesome things is that you can pick up just items or, you know, anything you can pick up that you need, basically, you can do so from horseback. And I find that actually, I don't think you can do that with like kunai, but you can do that with, you know, flowers or like outdoor materials. And so not having to dismount every single time you want to pick something up, that's just simple genius gameplay design because it's smooth, it makes everything go faster. And yeah, that's what I mean. Like if you're playing Red Dead Redemption 2 or Red Dead 1, either one, it's like you have to like get on and off your horse like each and every time because it's realistic, but just slows everything down quite a lot. So I really like that. Yeah, so moving on gameplay, before I dive into like the combat and the stealth and such, I just wanted to talk about the types of missions that you get. And there's like, in a way, there's like 3 types of activities that you do in the missions. You can be scouting, where it's like you're like picking out locations and like talking to yourself or your companions about your plan. Then there's like investigation, where you're like examining things in a house or following tracks. And then there's like combat, you know. So it was cool that they had different ways, like different activities that you could do throughout the game. And I have something about this I'm going to say more towards the end, but yeah, like all in all, they tried to add some diversity. And there's some people who think that it got a little repetitive, and I'll mention that at the end. But so I appreciated all that. Yeah, so I want to talk about the combat right now. So I think this game's combat was so fun. And for its time, again, it's now been 5 years, more than 5 years since Ghost of Tsushima was released. But especially for its time, the combat was really cool. The way you can use the bow and arrow are you get 2 different bows. It's quick, it's fun. You have 2 different bows, the heavy bow and the light bow, and you've got like different types of arrows, and they just have different feels. So that's really cool. Yeah, they have cool ranged weapons. I hardly even used the concentration, honestly. I just kind of, honestly, I think I felt like it was cheating a little bit. But, there's... Then moving on, the melee combat was really cool as well. I think there were times it felt like it could get a little too easy, but all in all, I think the melee combat is good. And it's really cool that you have the different stances that you can shift into to fight the different types of enemies. And again, it's just adding complexity to the game, right? You're not just like button mashing a couple of buttons just throughout the whole game. You have to very consciously be shifting into different stances to combat the different types of enemies that you're encountering. So I really appreciated, just what that added to the game. And then, yeah, just on the subject of combat, I guess the poison, and you get this in like, the poison dart blowgun. I guess you could call that a ranged weapon, but I wanted to talk about it on its own. I just thought it was so cool that you have that in a game where you can blow poison darts and you can blow the hallucination darts. And for me, the hallucination darts were the funnest part of combat to use in the game, where just like, having a perch somewhere where you can, hit someone with a hallucination dart and just like watch them freak out and have it like from there just cause panic throughout the whole Mongolian camp or bandit camp or whatever. Just really fun, really cool. Gives you more options as a player of like how you want to, navigate your way through a certain camp or scene. So that's all just really cool. And one thing with the combat I want to shout out, the standoffs are just sick. That's something I just haven't seen in a game before, where the standoffs were so cool, where, it's like, especially if you get the Sakai family armor and, you level it up all the way, you can get the standoff streaks up to, like, what is it, 5 or 6? So you can clear out a lot of enemies with the standoff. And it's cool because, again, it's like, there were moments where if there were people who I felt were like especially evil, I was like, no way I'm gonna stealth this. I'm walking in there we're just fighting head on. I mean, I just do a standoff, and it's like it's kind of channels like the honor of the samurai code, where it's like, you're evil, I am going to look you in the eye and defeat you because you're evil and you have to be stopped. And there's something about that just felt like really cool. And again, it's about player freedom, right? It gives you options. Like, you have a choice in how you, can handle different situations. So that was really cool. The ghost weapons are so fun in this game. The sticky bomb for me was probably my favorite ghost weapon. I just was chucking those left and right. That was really fun. I did not use the smoke bombs as much as I should have. By like Act 3, I started using them, and I kind of feel like the smoke bombs are actually like way make the game too easy, because you can just dump smoke bombs anywhere, and then you can just chain assassinate like up to 3 people. And if you're just doing that in combat zones, like, it kind of takes the fun out of the game, I feel like, so I would say that's something about the ghost weapons. I mean, the kunai too. The kunai are super fun, but I almost feel like,
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables.
Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft, pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
Like, there's so many different types of ghost weapons, and they're all so cool and good and fun that it kind of makes the game a little too easy. and once you factor in like all the different types of ranged weapons that you have, where you can get the explosive arrows, you can get the flaming arrows, and then you've got the poison weapons as well. It's like you've got the black powder bombs that you can throw. You've got a whole arsenal of things that you can throw, like the wind chimes to distract people. Like, you have such an arsenal that you can use. It almost feels a little bit too easy, but I'm not going to complain because it's fun. I mean, it's fun. You have tons of options, and it's just fun to use and play. So that's all really cool. And I guess one last thing I want to add as far as, like gameplay in combat and such, but the duels are awesome. And again, what other game do you have like a classic samurai sort of duel, where you're like in a ring with someone, or you're at this beautiful location and they've got a health bar, and it's like, yeah, you have to just duel them using your sword, and that's really all you got. They don't let you use the like ghost weapons and such during the duels. So I thought those were really cool. A lot of times the duels had cool music, not all the time, which I thought was kind of just missed opportunities. But yeah, so that about wraps up the combat for me. I mean, I thought the combat all in all was really good. I had a lot of fun playing with it. And again, I encourage everyone to do the Ghost of or the Iki Island DLC, because you can get the horse charge in the DLC, and if you bring that back with you, that is so fun. I think just that adds like a whole nother element to being on horseback as you're playing. So yeah, next I want to talk about the stealth as part of the gameplay. So I mean, so here's the thing. I feel like the stealth was really fun. It was a really fun component of the game, but like it was kind of goofy, and I think that the AI kind of sucked basically. And this is interesting. This kind of happens with most stealth games, unless you're playing like The Last of Us Part 2 on what do they call it, Grounded. But like, it's kind of, and this is kind of how it was with Assassin's Creed always, right? Where it's like the AI kind of has no vertical line of sight. So it's like you can just be like, if you're 7 feet off the ground on top of like a roof, like no one's looking up. And so there's moments where it just feels really goofy. And in Ghost of Tsushima, there's a lot of hiding in the grass, which again, I thought was fun and cool. But there were definitely lots of moments where it felt like almost a little too easy, where it's like, if the Mongols didn't spot you, like if they didn't detect you fully so that a fight started, it's almost like, they would just kind of go back to whatever they were doing. They'd blow their horn and just say like, oh, I think I saw something. But like nothing would really come of it. So, and then I remember in Assassin's Creed, like in Assassin's Creed 2, when they had the first ever firearm, and it was like the wrist gun, like you could shoot someone and then people like 20 feet away just like wouldn't be on guard at all. And it was like, I mean, what, nobody heard that gunshot, like, right on the other side of this wall or whatever it is. So there was a lot of similar stuff like that. But all in all, like, at least for me, I play these video games to enjoy them. I'm not playing for some, like, I do like realism in certain games when that's what you're signing up for. And I think in this game, you're not signing up for a game that has, like, again, Last of Us Part 2 grounded difficulty. You're not signing up for the most hardcore, challenging, realistic stealth gameplay that you can possibly find. Now, if you turn the difficulty up to lethal, you will get more of a challenge. That's definitely true in Ghost of Tsushima, and I do want to say that. But I was just playing on regular, on medium. But so yeah, I love the stealth. I thought the stealth was awesome. I thought it was really fun. And even though I thought the AI was kind of goofy a lot of times, and even when you're like sneaking through a Mongolian camp, though you can like, hide in a Mongolian yurt and then like come out of it, defeat people inside of it, defeat them in grass. Like there's just a bunch of options for it. So I appreciated that. Yeah, and so we're getting towards the end of the gameplay section here. I want to talk about the acrobatics actually. I thought the climbing was all really cool, like the way you can scale the mountains. And again, it's not really like, I wouldn't say it's really open world. You can't just like climb at will. You kind of have to follow. It's a very rigid like rock climbing path. But for me, that was fine. It's like you get to have some like cliff scaling and some climbing, which is fun and cool and worth it. But it's not like so complex that you're ever like getting stuck or or you can't find your way or something like that. I do have to say there were times climbing where like, I think it took me a while to understand how to use the left stick to like jump a certain direction, and that's something in Ghost of Yotei that they've improved a lot. But yeah, so that was cool. The air assassinations, jumping down and air assassinating are just one of the coolest parts of the stealth combat, I feel. So that was really cool. Once you get the grappling hook is awesome, and being able to like swing from branches and across canyons and chasms, like all that is really cool. So yeah, lots of cool acrobatics. And again, jumping off your horse, adding that to the acrobatics, that's really cool. And the part where you can like critical strike enemies from horseback is awesome. And riding into battle and doing that is just one of the coolest things. Yeah, and one of the last things I'll mention on gameplay is just the like leveling up. The techniques that you can get to expand your different stances or the ghost weapons. Yeah, I mean, I thought this was really cool. And again, to me, like, it was a perfect balance where there's a lot of different techniques to learn, but it's not so much that it creates a game that's like, 150 hours or 100 hours to play. Like, it's enough that it's fun, but small enough that it feels like manageable in, just like a reasonable amount of time. So yeah, and definitely upgrade all your ghost weapons, y'all. That's what I did first. I was totally hardcore on the ghost weapons. I love those things. So yeah, I mean, wrapping up the gameplay here, I thought the gameplay was just fantastic. I mean, I thought it was really good, and I thought it was super fun. And that's the thing. Like, whatever the gameplay misses, and like these little minor things that could have been improved here or there, it's like covered for 10 times over by just how fun it all ends up being. And that's what matters, right? Do we have fun playing these video games? And when you're playing Ghost of Tsushima, the answer is a resounding yes, that we're having fun playing this. So that to me answers the whole gameplay section. So at this point, I really just have a couple other miscellaneous points to the review that I want to get to before we'll end on our final verdict here. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk about the Kurosawa mode. I just think it's awesome that they have it, and I actually haven't even played the Kurosawa mode yet, but I want to go back and do it at some point. And I just think it's fantastic that they added it in. And again, as a gamer, I'm a fan of options. Like, you can never go wrong by just adding in endless options and letting players choose to play the game how they want. And so by adding in the Kurosawa mode, it's a different mode. It's another mode to play. And it does honor, like a classic Japanese film style. And to have that in the game is just really, really cool. And just like an awesome and worthwhile thing. So I wanted to shout that out. I also wanted to talk about the bartering system for a second here. Like, I don't feel it was too expansive. It's like you really pick up flowers, you find yew wood, you find bamboo, furs, like there's not too much to find, and you pick up supplies. There's not really money. Supplies function as like the currency, and you can sell and buy at will. And again, I feel like it was like it was what it needed to be, so that you can buy different gear. You can have like just different materials and currency that you're pursuing, but not huge enough where, like, for me in Baldur's Gate 3, like, I just got lost in how much like inventory management, how much of a problem that became for me, because I was just looting everything like it was Fallout. I was selling everything, and it just got to this point where I had just like chests and chests and chests full of gear in Baldur's Gate 3. And even though the bartering system and the inventory system is much more simplistic in Ghost of Tsushima, I think that's a good thing. And again, they're different types of games. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but they're different types of games, and they have different purposes. And Ghost of Tsushima isn't meant to be as huge of like, an inventory bartering game as Baldur's Gate 3 is. So all in all, want to shout out, I thought they did a good job with it. And yeah, I loved collecting flowers to be able to buy gear. I kind of wish the flowers were a little more common so that you could more easily buy more gear like earlier in the game. But if you just keep an eye on and play for long enough, eventually you can mostly pick up everything you want to. Yeah, and that actually is a good transition to my next bullet point here, which is customization of gear. I just loved how many different types of armor you can get, and how many different types of dyes and sword kits and like hats and masks. And I mean, there's so many different types of gear that you can find, and so many different types of customization that you can do for them, that it ends up being just like really fun to mix and match all the different types of outfits, and mix and match them maybe for how you're feeling or the type of mission that you're on, or like, if you're feeling like, angry dark Jin fighting against, Lord Shimura, you can put on like black armor. And, it's just cool that they give you that option. That's probably one of the fun parts of the games. And on the Ghost of Tsushima Discord channel and, on the Reddit, it's like you see people always posting screenshots of their costumes. And who wouldn't? Because it's fun. So, that's awesome. And then I'll talk about the music. The music is fantastic in this game. Like, there's so many points where the music is just really, really good. And Jin playing on the flute is just so peaceful. It's just peaceful, beautiful, awesome. My main complaint in Ghost of Tsushima is that you didn't get more of the flute, and that's why I once again have to recommend and maybe even demand that all of you play the Iki Island DLC, because you get so much more of the flute playing in the Iki Island DLC, and that just adds a ton for me. But the end scene where you have the choice with Lord Shimura, that music is just like heart-wrenching, emotional music, and they just did a fantastic job with it. And the opening scene music at the Komoda Beach battle is fantastic too. So I wanted to shout that out. And this is the last thing I'm going to shout out before I just dive into the final verdict here. But I actually just wanted to shout out the photo mode. The photo mode is just really, really good. It's just one of the number of different options that they give you in the photo mode of even like shifting the weather to whatever you want. And there's so many different lenses and angles and degrees. And like, honestly, I didn't even use the photo mode too much. And one of the reasons is because I was kind of overwhelmed by how many different options there were to play around with it, that I was just like, wow, this is nuts. And I'm trying to record a podcast about this game and not spend, 20 hours just taking photos in different types of lighting. But again, it's options. The fact that they add it in, because photo mode might not be my number one thing, but there's a lot of people out there who they do spend hours and hours playing on the photo mode. And that's awesome that is there for them. So I really just appreciate that it's there. So yeah, lots of miscellaneous stuff to talk about. There's still more that, I'm not going to be able to get to in this review, but there's so much in this game to find that, and I think it's all worth it. So lots of miscellaneous stuff. Just highly, highly recommend and review all that. And yeah, just getting to a final verdict on this game. So here's the thing. I loved this game. So I'm going to talk about just like a couple things that I see often mentioned in the discourse about Ghost of Tsushima, and I just want to talk about them, and just give them mention here. And it's not to have like a bunch of criticisms all like logged in one place, but just mentioning it here. So I've seen that like some people feel that the game is a little bit too repetitive, and I do understand that. And like all in all, one of the biggest things I saw is that people feel like by the end of Act 1, you've kind of seen everything the game has to offer. And I think that is objectively true. I didn't have a problem with it. I still felt like the game was fun. And it wasn't, again, it's not like a 100-hour game or a 150-hour game, or like Skyrim, where it's like, by the time you're exploring your 300th cave, it's like, all right, I think I might have seen enough of this, although I could just do that forever, honestly. But like, I can understand where that's coming from. The game was not too repetitive for me, but I can definitely see some, I think that's like a fair criticism. And then that kind of gets into like the length of the game, which some people feel that like it was maybe a little bit too long. So Ghost of Tsushima is about a 40 or 50 hour playthrough. And that's like, I would say it's like a solid 50 to 60 if you truly do everything. If you do absolutely everything, you find every location, you do every collectible and everything, like it's probably 50 to 60 hours, a safe bet. But I think for most people, it ends up being around 40 hours of gameplay. And again, if I can see what people are saying, where it's like, if Act 1 is 15 or 20 hours long, and you've like seen all the different types of fighting and techniques and quests and everything by the end of Act 1, and you've still got 20 or 30 hours to go, I can see how like the game might feel a little long if you're doing the same thing the whole time. Again, that wasn't the case for me. I had fun the whole time. I didn't have a problem with that, but I can see where people are coming from on that. Now here's one critique I would have that I really do strongly feel, and it's just that there were times the dialogue, to me, I wanted it to be a little bit deeper. And don't get me wrong, like already the storylines that they have in this game, I think, as I mentioned, are really fantastic and they're really, really good. But there's just a lot of times like the dialogue to me were missed opportunities. Like I mentioned the hot springs already, and that's a good example. And there's other examples where I just felt like someone might say something like really heartfelt to Jin, and he'd just say like, "It's really important to keep going." And like, don't get me wrong, like he's right, and sometimes, and maybe that's true. Like maybe sometimes that's all there is to say in real life to people in hard moments. But there were just moments where I just felt like the dialogue was just a little bit too simplistic, and there could have been more. And again, I don't think any of it is bad. I just think there were some missed opportunities along the way, and that's a big difference. Something being like actively like, oh my god, this is terrible, versus like, you know, oh, that's a missed opportunity. Those are two very different things. And there's almost nothing in this whole game that you can point to that is terrible. And I think everybody agrees on that, basically. So yeah, our final verdict on this game, I mean, for me, the Ghost of Tsushima is just one of the top releases of the 2020s so far. And I have to say, it does sadden me a little bit, because now that Ghost of Yotei is out, Ghost of Yotei does so much that just like propels the Ghost series forward in terms of graphics and gameplay and exploration and immersion, that it's like, even that statement of like Ghost of Tsushima being one of the best games of this decade, like I feel like that already almost can't hold up, because Ghost of Yotei has already one-upped it, and it's only been out for like a week. But you know, with that being said, what Ghost of Tsushima did for its time in 2020 and for the last 5 years, I think was really incredible. I mean, I think a lot of people fell in love with like an action RPG game set in Japan. And you know, there's been other games like this set in Japan, but and Assassin's Creed Shadows came out earlier this year in 2025, and like people had wanted an Assassin's Creed game in Japan for a really long time, and Ghost of Tsushima kind of beat them to the punch and did their own thing, you know, in some ways. So for me, I loved Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, I would easily give Ghost of Tsushima a 9 out of 10. You know, if someone were to, you could maybe haggle me down to an 8.5 on stealth or AI, or, you know, certain parts of the map maybe being a little too big here and there. But like, and you could also, hey, if someone wanted to argue me up to a 9.5, I could easily get there too. So yeah, and I think that's pretty in line with how mostly everybody feels. I mean, this game, all in all, I think I just saw something. I was on the internet somewhere before recording this episode, and I saw Ghost of Tsushima had like 13,000 reviews on some website, and the average was like 4.8 stars out of 5. And that's pretty incredible in this day and age, you know, for a game with that many reviews. So my final verdict is that this game is a must play. I think everyone has to play Ghost of Tsushima. It's really fantastic, and if not, just to learn something about this crazy moment in history where, you know, the nation of Japan, I mean, they weren't a nation, but the islands of Japan was very well could have been conquered and subjugated by the Mongolians, but they end up being wiped out really before they ever get there. And in real life, it's because of the weather. It's because of a storm, and a storm wipes out their fleet. So that's just really crazy. And to be able to play a game that's like set in this time, that's so immersive and cool and fun, is just a privilege. It's one of the things that makes whatever complaints we have about living in the modern day. When you play Ghost of Tsushima, you're sitting there and you're like, Yeah, this is pretty sweet. I mean, I get to be alive for ice cream and Ghost of Tsushima. So, what more do we have to complain about beyond that, right? All right, y'all. With that, we are gonna wrap up our Ghost of Tsushima full game review. I can't believe just what a wild ride it's been for me recording this podcast and these episodes. 26 full episodes on Ghost of Tsushima and the Iki Island DLC. There's actually been 5 or 6 more about Ghost of Yotei before, like, leading up to the release before now. But yeah, this has been super fun for me, super fun to play this game, super fun to make a podcast about it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed the game. Please feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media channels. The links are in the show notes. You can leave us a 5-star review on the Apple Podcast Store or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. So, hey, thank you all for listening. I hope you guys are getting to play Ghost of Yotei. And if you are, please tell me everything you think about Ghost of Yotei and Ghost of Tsushima. Feel free to reach out. Thanks for listening, everybody. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon.